minutes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's Jodee, and this is another episode of Circle Up and Get Real. And if you know anything about me and listening to this, you know that being real is really important to me, and more important all the time. And I want to introduce one of my dearest friends to you who has been with me on this journey to being real. This is Ashley Lunn, who, oh God, Ash, how do I even start, man? This is, Ashley is, we call each other spiritual partners because we really do hold space for each other to show up as whole people. I don't know. Is that a good way to say it, Ashley?
I think it's a good way to say it. And then the part I love about that is we both trust each other enough to allow each other to call each other on all of the stuff that comes up.
Yeah. So I met Ashley when both of us were with Keller Williams. She still is. I am no longer. I was a team leader and new to my position as a team leader, having come to that position without having any real estate experience. So I already felt like a fish out of water. And I was at a national convention and I heard this little fireball person on stage talking about being a team leader without having real estate experience. And here she was on stage at a national convention talking about that. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one. And I heard you talk and I was so I don't know, attracted to your energy. And I just thought.
It's so funny because I absolutely remember that day, primarily because we did get to meet. And I remember being on stage for that event. I had no clue what the contact was until you just reminded me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you remember now?
A little, because I've had that opportunity to be on stage a couple times. And in that discussion where we're talking about agent leadership councils also?
I don't remember. All I remember, because it was all new to me. I didn't know any of this ALC. I didn't know any of the language because it was my very first event. Wow. And I just remember thinking, if there's somebody on stage at a big international company like this who got to her position in a similar way as maybe there's hope for me.
Yeah.
And so you were like a goddess to me at the time. I didn't know. You're laughing, but think about it from my perspective.
No, I get it. I totally get it because I've been in the audience, right?
Right. Yeah. So I am in the little bar attached across the street from the convention center, and I'm with one of my coworkers at the time. And this person from stage walked in to this Champions, right? Wasn't it Champions?
Champions. Yep. Every time I walk in there, I go, that's where we're at.
Right where it was, right? And you walk by and I went, oh, this is my chance. Oh my gosh, this is my chance. And my heart was pounding and I said, I need to talk to you. And I don't remember anything from there, but I remember making connection with you.
Yeah. You just said, yeah, you want to have lunch with us? And I said, absolutely. And we sat and talked and have been talking constantly ever since.
And that was in
How long ago was that?
That was in 2011.
Oh my goodness. I didn't think it was that long ago.
Because that was my
almost
first
10 years.
Yeah. And we have been connected since. We talk almost every week. We've gotten together in person a few times. You just put a notice on Facebook today about 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was a great weekend.
We spent some time together planning a retreat, which is going to happen at some point when the timing is right.
At some point.
Yeah, we put white or flip chart paper on the walls, and we know we've got something that we need to share with the world. So this is Ashley Lunn. I've done a lot of talking. I haven't really given you your due. So could you just tell us, Ashley, a little bit more about you and how you got here?
Sure. So I fell into real estate out of college. I graduated in 1999 with a degree in religion and really had no idea what I was going to do for a career.
Wait. A degree in religion and real estate.
And it's interesting. It seems like it wouldn't fit, but with what I do in real estate, it's a perfect fit because I now own a real estate office. I led one for 10 years, and that's all about working with and through people. And when you get the kind of education I did in religion, it's all about learning about people and belief systems. And it was probably the best degree I could have had for what I currently do.
Interesting.
It's taken a long time to realize that, yet there's no coincidences. It set me up for holding the space I have to hold now.
Oh, I love that. So, if you've heard me talk before, you know that this is the language that Ashley and I use because we talk about holding space a lot. And people, you and I just kind of throw that out there. And people might say, what the heck do you mean holding space? So
I think it's really hard to describe. I think you've got to experience it to know it. For me, I can remember back a couple really key people in that religion experience and in getting my degree, two people in particular who they would walk into a room and you just felt safe and at peace and like all was okay. And for me, that's what holding space is. It's just a space of allowing whatever's going to come up with safety.
So it's a feeling for the people who are in that space.
Yes. I think you've got to experience it.
That's good. So my job and your job, and I know you do this for me, and I hope I do this for you, to hold, if we will just use that language, you hold that space where you feel safe, where you feel validated, where you feel valued, where you feel appreciated, and you feel that you can't really mess up, even if you say
well, that's the other side. So yes, of course, valued and appreciated, but not judged.
Right.
And so, I think it's that, in our best moments when we're holding space, we can withhold that judgment so it doesn't even enter the ether. And yeah, I think that's what makes that priceless, because we're all human. We've all got our faults. And I think our own personal judgment and feeling the judgment of others is often what keeps us from growing, because then we don't even acknowledge those negatives or those dark sides.
Oh, that's such a good point. So shadow, and we were talking about this yesterday in one of my mastermind groups. Without the sun, you don't have shadow, right? Without the shadow, there's really no need to explore any of the other stuff that's not, sunshine and roses and lollipops. And that we know that's not what life is.
No, there's the constant duality of it, right? And yet, as one of my mentors has taught me, we always want to look good and be right as human beings. And so as soon as we start to feel judgment, we try to fit in and hide those things. And I think we're seeing right now, as a country, we've been really good at hiding a lot of things.
Oh, we could talk about so many things. So Ashley and I, when we talk on Fridays, usually we talk on Fridays or Thursdays, depends on when we get together. We talk about all this stuff, you guys. We talk about everything, and everything includes religion, politics, everything about that we're not supposed to talk about in public, right? So in the Get Real Circle, which might be where you're hearing some of this conversation, and on the Circle Up and Get Real podcast, everything is fair game. Everything is out there to be talked about, because if we're not, to your point, we're stuffing it, and our country
we're stuffing it and we're not learning.
Yeah.
And how egocentric is that to say, I know everything, we don't need to talk about it, I know it all. I've become very clear in the last 2 months, there's a lot more that I don't know than I know.
There's a lot more that you don't know than you know. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and get that you know a lot more than most of the people in the world. Let's just be honest about that, because
I don't know about that. I think we all delude ourselves to a certain extent. I was on a Zoom yesterday with a Black friend. We're talking about race, and we're going everywhere in that conversation because I think people are so uncomfortable with it, and we have the willingness to do it. And I've been doing a tremendous amount of reading over the last couple weeks, and I am livid that the professional education that I got from a child to a $100,000 degree in religion, which by the way means you have to study a whole lot of history, a great deal of it I was either lied to or truth was at least kept from me. And I'm sorry?
On purpose?
Well, so Emmerich said yesterday, I said, a white person growing up in the 70s and 80s in the American school system, the things I am now learning about slavery, knew slavery existed, didn't know it was basically the entire basis for the country being formed, and a whole lot of the detail. I was never exposed to it. 45 years old, now I'm reading it. I said, as a Black man in the United States, growing up similar time, when did you become aware of this history? And he had that education in school because he was in a predominantly Black neighborhood, and they taught authentic Black history, which is American history, incidentally. And I went, wait a minute, in the 70s and 80s, there were actually books with this written in it, because they never came into my school system.
Mine either.
And they existed. So yes, I do believe
Okay.
now. So that's why I'm working through the anger. It was purposefully kept out
Mm.
of our education.
Is there anything in looking back on things like that that you can look back and say people were doing the best they could with what they knew?
It's so funny. That was my Facebook post this morning, because that's how I have to process through the anger. Sure, because right now I'm challenged. Going, am I really existing in this time frame in America with all this stuff that happened intentionally to keep an entire race of people, which is also we invented, um, and it was all intentional.
Mm.
I don't feel comfortable looking at that and saying white people did all this stuff intentionally, but I have to. We
Because they
did.
did. Oh,
And so, we have this debate right now among friends. There was a time it was really nice to be naive.
yeah. Oh, I totally get that. Yeah.
And
Ignorance is
yet,
bliss, right?
every time I get to know something, be aware of something new, I can no longer be naive. Now I feel a responsibility to really understand what
Mm.
happened. So on the flip side of that, can I understand why we would hide that? Sure, we should be.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying every white person should be ashamed, but what our government has done, certainly, um, we need to look at and say I'm sorry a lot, I
Yeah.
guess. I mean, there's,
Right.
oh, Jodee, if you could,
Mhm.
and I'm sure you will, I'll send you some of these books.
Okay.
It's astonishing.
So I lived for the first 3 years of my career, 2 miles from an Indian reservation, from a Native American Indian reservation. And I kind of think it's similar um, in the way we as white Americans tried to make reparations for things that were not good.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation when I was 22 years old with a Native American person from the reservation, which, by the way, when I was 22, they told me don't go on the reservation at night.
Yeah. Wasn't safe. Of course not.
No, no.
Yeah.
And I asked him, is there any way we can get beyond this? Is there any way you and I having this conversation right now can get beyond this? Because it's not me and it's not you. And he said no. And I said, but you and me, like Jodee and you. And he really had a hard time seeing me as not a white person who took his land.
Well, and I get that. And he was one person,
Yeah.
right? And we have to, in these conversations, we have to be really careful. I've been asked to be on Zooms as the white representative. I'm like,
Yeah.
holy heck, I am not representing all white people.
Yeah.
And he wasn't representing all Native Americans.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Yeah.
If I attempt, because all I can do is attempt to get into the mindset of a black person in America right now, with all the stories I've heard about how terrified they are every time they get pulled over,
Mm-hmm.
legitimately so,
Mm-hmm.
I can understand how every white person I would look at would look like a threat.
Yeah.
I
So,
can't.
okay, I don't think I've said this. Ashley lives in California. She lives in the San Diego area right now. I don't think we even said that. And I'm in North Dakota. So you and I have very different, look out the window. It's very different.
It's very different. And yes, while I'm in San Diego and my business and a lot of my social life is in downtown San Diego, I live in a little rural town that's a farm town. I mean, we've got farms and horses out here and very little people of color.
Yeah.
Go 25 miles in and it's pretty diverse. But
Okay.
where I'm at now is probably very North Dakota-like, just more hills.
Yeah, a lot more hills than where I live. Well, and so for me, growing up, I mean, you grew up in Las Vegas, so I mean, you've grown up around diversity. I
actually grew up in a very poor area of Vegas and was one of the only white faces until I was 15, and we moved across the valley to a very white place, which was a culture shock for me.
Okay, so for me, I don't have any history with specific Native Americans or, of people of any other color to have drawn any kind of negative conclusion. So for me, everybody, this is going to sound weird, and I've said this before, but everything was on TV to me. California was on TV to me. Palm trees were not real. Nobody had palm trees. They were just fake, and you'd put them on a soundstage set. That's how I look at it.
There's 4 right out my window.
No, quit it, because I love them now. But the real world was white, picket fences like Mayberry in my experience of the world, because that was how I grew up. And so to me, I never had a reason to be upset with Native Americans or with Black people or anybody. And then
Do
when
you
I
think
got,
you had some programming though?
oh, I'm
Because
sure.
everything you were seeing was
Yeah,
white?
for sure. And it was like, that's not real. You
Yeah.
know, for me, it could have been, don't take this wrong, it could have been that they're wearing makeup. I don't know. Maybe everybody's white and they're wearing dark makeup, or maybe they're putting a feather in their cap to be an Indian, you
Which,
know?
by the way, they did in a lot of the
Oh my
media in
God,
the 30s,
right.
40s, and
You're
50s.
right. So maybe I'm part of the white, what is it, white ignorance, and what, you know, all of this that is being uncovered now. I'm part of that system.
There you go.
Yeah.
And am I to different extremes? And that is, I don't know if I haven't read this term, but it just makes sense to me in my brain. We have a white blindness,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we're not exposed, and different words, whitewashed. What do you think that means?
Yeah.
Right? And that's why, for me, this is both an exciting time and a time that is eliciting a lot of fear and anger, because I have to confront, I don't have to, I choose to confront a lot of what I have just taken to be true my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unsettling. And at the same time, it's exciting, because what's on the other side of that, right?
Everything.
And I don't think I've had an experience where once I was actually more educated and more enlightened, it was a negative.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so talk to me about the anger that precedes that then. Talk to me about, I've been training myself that there's no place for anger. Just stay with me on this. That anger, you don't need to have anger, because you can just have, you know, like happiness.
Well, if we think of the map of consciousness, it's
Right.
not a productive energy.
Yeah.
Starts the productive energy.
Yeah.
I don't like the feeling of it. We know there's health consequences to it. And I believe I'm at my best when I'm vibrating at a higher level than anger.
Right.
So yes, there's benefits to it sometimes if you can channel it in the right way. I personally want to get through it as quickly as possible. Because I know I can create more on the other end of it.
Yeah.
And again, it's just the sense of me individually being lied to and deluded by no fault of my own, and yet it having an impact, and then that having an impact of me contributing to this overall problem, and being unaware for so long. I know there's been times, and I've had the conscious thought of, well, race, it's so much better now, and racism really isn't that bad. And oh man, there's reverse discrimination. Don't we have to look at that too? And I'm now learning that's, for me, all illusionary thinking based on the programming that my community and the American world put me through.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me angry, because it has made me complicit in things that have led to Black men being killed on a daily basis almost.
Yeah. So anger, then you said, I want to get through it because you didn't say it like this, but I want to use that energy to propel me into, you said, getting more educated, learning more about these things, because I know you well enough to know that you are a huge influencer. You'll have a huge impact in people's lives, a lot of people's lives, because of the position you've put yourself into, because you've worked your way into this system up through the ranks at Keller Williams, where you've been a team leader, you've been an operating partner, you own some market centers now, you are a speaker, you're a coach. You do a lot of things because you understand your place, I think, in the world. You understand you're getting better at owning your gifts and owning your mission and your calling, I think.
And I think hopefully every day we get better at that. I'm very clear on what my purpose on the planet is, and what, my growth within the company. The intention was never, I don't want to say it wasn't to live that mission out. I'm living my purpose and my mission every day. I happen to have the professional growth that has given me a bigger platform than some. And for me, it's just bigger and bigger spaces to hold for people, to invite, use your language, to invite them into a conversation that we don't get to have in very many safe ways. Right. I mean, how many conversations have you had with people where immediately judgment comes out and then any possibility for growth or learning ceases? Yeah. Because as soon as you start to judge me, I'm going to dig my heels in and have to justify.
Well, that's why I always call it dialogue, because dialogue is suspending. It's an agreement to suspend any previous assumptions in order to learn from each other in the time we're together in that space. You can pick up your assumptions when you leave, if that's what you want to do. But for the moment we're together, I want everybody, but I would love a world where everybody would agree to be in a dialogue circle, if maybe we would call it that, a dialogue space
Yeah.
where, wow, I never thought about it like that. That is what I love to hear.
Yep.
From me, right? I love to be in that space.
And I think one of the reasons we enjoy each other so much is because we know we're going to have conversations like that, and it's rare.
Yeah.
Unless we're hired, right, to facilitate something where that's the expectation. That's not how most conversations in this country go.
Yeah.
They don't come out of curiosity.
No.
We typically, in the coaching, the story model, you have a thought or an opinion or a belief, and you go around looking just for the people who agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You're looking for evidence to prove that you're right. Yep. And I think that comes from, earlier we were talking about anger, and we were talking about this lack of a place to grow. If we don't have a place that allows us as best we can, non-judgment, how would we ever know? We would only be more angry. We would only be looking to connect with others who believe what we already believe.
And who are exactly like us. And that is so dangerous.
And that is the echo chamber world, right? Yeah. I read an article yesterday about echo chambers, and maybe this is a new thing for me. Maybe echo chambers aren't as bad as I've been making them be in the last couple of weeks. Because at least in a space where we feel that we have some commonality, we can start challenging each other in a safer space to get beyond that. Maybe I've been looking at echo chambers as only a place where I can justify my anger.
It's interesting. I get what you're saying on that, and I just have this very, very strong belief that we all have way more in common as human beings than we have different. Mm-hmm. And yet, for whatever reason, and I do think there are people in power, the power structures, especially now, they know that fear controls. And so instead of looking at all the commonalities we have, hyper focus is on the differences.
Right.
And differences typically bring fear with it, right? And divide. And that is one way, whether it's in a family, I've seen it happen in my family, a company, or a country. That's one way for the people in power to keep power.
Sure. Well, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep.
Word acting.
And so in an echo chamber, I think there are probably benefits to it, but in any closed system, unless something new is brought in, no growth can happen.
Mm. So in that vein, would you talk a little bit about your daily, I forgot what you're calling them, your
come together right now?
Come together right now. You talk to me about how that started. I had the opportunity to be part of that early in that whole, what is it? How was it born, and how is it going today? Tell me about that.
That's okay. So what it is, and we've adjusted the schedule a little bit. When we all went into stay-at-home orders across the country, we were getting a lot of information within our company from different leaders about how horrible things were going to be, right? Unemployment is high. Real estate's just going to shut down. Businesses in general obviously have, in a lot of cases, shut down for a month, 2, 3 at a time. And my feeling was there was a hyper focus on all the negative impacts. And I personally needed somebody to boost my energy. I needed somebody to give a hopeful message. And I had reached out to people within the company and was told that everything we needed, we were getting as far as messaging. And I went, interesting. Okay, so I reached out for help. There was no life preserver. I've got to swim now. And I decided that I had the connections. I know incredible people who inspire me all the time and who do lift my energy. So we created a daily 1-hour Zoom that we invited the agents in my market center, because I needed market center being office. I knew our agents needed some hope and inspiration. And then because I have had the opportunity to meet a lot of Keller Williams people across the world, we opened it up to everybody. And so I think we started on March 27th, and we went daily through the end of May. And then we adjusted to 3 times a week. So now it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And because of what happened with George Floyd, that I already had the platform, and I thought, I've got an audience and the platform, and we're having these inspiring talks, and now let's get real, to use your words, about the racial conversation. And I reached out to my buddy Emmerich Peace, who's also a office owner on the East Coast, right outside of Baltimore. And he and I, like you and I, the day he and I met in 2005, we just became good buddies since then. And I knew he would hold the same kind of space we hold in these racial conversations, and at the same time, not bullshit anybody, and just bring reality. So now he and I are doing that once a week. And I have to admit, when I decided to reach out to him, I had a lot of apprehension that first week the George Floyd murder happened, because I didn't want to say anything wrong. I didn't want to offend my Black friends. I was not afraid of offending any white people, but I was really, really afraid of saying the wrong thing and hurting somebody.
Right.
And when I reached out to him and he said, absolutely, we can do this, it was like, it became very obvious very quickly that within our local communities and within our company, there were going to be very, very few people comfortable even approaching these issues.
Wow. And
so what I thought would be a one-time thing, I asked him, can we do this till it's no longer needed? And so we've continued that. And I was appalled at myself, because when I did decide to do that, the first one that we did, I went and uploaded it to my YouTube channel, which is where I put the rest of the come-togethers also. And there, you've got the little 2-inch squares for all the videos. And I went, oh my goodness, everybody else that I've interviewed over, I think at that point we had 60 of them, with the exclusion of one person, everybody else was white. And that was a moment of, unless we're intentional, we're in my industry, in your city, in my city, unless we're intentional, we are not going to have a very diverse representation.
Right. Yeah. There's so much to say about that. I tried to do that early after George Floyd. That happened 3 hours from me, right? So this is like real. While I don't have a ton of Black friends and people who are Black in my area, there are some here, but in Minneapolis, that's my town. That's my second town. That hurts so badly, and I don't even live there. And there were a lot of reasons that hurt. So I tried to do what you were doing with Emmerich, and I had conversations a couple of times with my Black friends, and it's so funny because my Black friends are like me. It's not a racial thing. It's a socioeconomic thing. And to me, that was a huge aha, that it didn't even occur to me. And we were halfway through, actually toward the end of the conversation, and my friend Jodee, who lives in California, said, well, I was driving my Mercedes and blah, blah, blah. And I went, I drive a Honda. Oh my gosh. And David's like, I have a Tesla. And I'm, oh, wow, you guys. Okay, so you're Black and you're at a higher socioeconomic level than I am. This is not that issue for me.
Yeah.
Now there's a whole other thing to talk about, because now we can talk about prejudice in lots of ways. We can talk about judgment, as we were saying earlier. Oh my gosh, there's so many things to unpack when you think about it like that. And when you and I talk, I never think about your race. I don't think about any of that. I think about your soul. I think about you.
However, that's white privilege.
Oh yeah, dang it. Don't make this.
It just is, because there's been studies on this. And again, the reading I've done is eye-opening. When asked, a group of white people asked, how often do you talk about race? What comes up is exactly, we don't think about it. We never talk about it.
I know.
When you ask this same number group of Black people, they say at least daily. Now I said a word earlier, and I did not know this. Race is actually something we created, not ethnicity, but the term race. It's a human invention.
Okay.
And it was made so that we would have the contrast between black and white, and the black race, as white people termed it, is inferior. And we had to do that because, and I understand how the human brain would do this. Mm-hmm. People who owned slaves mm-hmm. and mistreated to the extent that human beings were mistreated couldn't look at those people as human beings. They had to make them more animalistic, which is where race came from.
Oh my gosh, I totally get that when you say it like that.
Doesn't it make sense?
It does. It makes perfect sense, because I can't, in my soul, I can't imagine treating a human being. I can't imagine treating an animal the way those human beings were treated. I can't even.
So as a human, we had to, I mean, it's horrendous and understandable. We had to protect ourselves.
I get it. Mm-hmm.
And make that difference.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is what's being kind of not uncovered necessarily. It's always been there. It's just that you are leading the way in having these conversations with people like Emmerich. Does he feel like he needs to represent his entire race?
We both say no. I mean, whenever you're called on to be the white person or the Black person on a Zoom, that's the expectation. But we both say, hey, we're not speaking for our entire race or ethnicity or company or family, for that matter. This is my experience. I think I've had that experience as a gay person, right? Or the token that give us that perspective. You can't ever generalize that much.
Yeah. Well, and I think it focuses so much, like you said earlier, on the places we're different than the places we're the same or similar. And there's who Maya Angelou said something about how we are so much more the same than any of our differences would point out. And I think you're showing that, you're demonstrating that in your daily, or now 3 times a week, come together right now. Tell me about how that's been received by people who've been watching and maybe people who've been on there.
Really well. I actually had intended that we would stop it once things eased up, because we're not trapped at home anymore. And I kind of had an outcry from our regular audience and said, please don't. We did go down to the 3 days a week, but they wanted that message. And again, a hopeful message in light of everything that's happening. And because of the people, yourself included, that have said yes and come on there, it is a great exposure to the best and the brightest people I know. And I've been very selective. It's not just best and brightest. It's also people I consider heart-led leaders who are incredibly authentic. And again, I think it's rare that we get those opportunities to have conversations like that. So at least we get 3 a week that everybody can listen into.
Yeah. What I find, oh, sorry, go ahead, finish.
It's okay. And what has tickled me is a lot of the people that I've invited on don't have their own, they haven't really grown their own audience around their cause, and they get excited. They get to talk about their passion. I had a woman on named Candace who she rescues horses off of feedlots. And I know this is her passion. And when she gets to talk about it and the incredible work that she does with those horses and then rehabilitating people, to expose her to a bigger audience, it makes me feel great, makes her feel great. And I think raises the vibration for everybody.
Oh, you know.
Yeah.
You don't think, So what fascinates me about this project and being part of it from the very beginning with you is how fun it is to watch you be amazed by it. Because it's like every day you go, wow, this, and you still know this many people that you can still add to the mix of things you're doing, that so many people, because you see their hearts. You see them maybe in ways they aren't even aware that they can be seen.
And it's when I get to just kind of look at myself too, nobody I've asked has said no.
Really?
Which has been shocking, because I've asked some pretty top level leaders in our company. I don't know when yet, but this is just fun to share. In the 90s, I did a lot of music promoting, and I traveled a lot while I was in college. And there is one particular artist who I still adore, but haven't talked to in, she performed at my 30th birthday. So 15 years we haven't talked. And I reached out to her because she's a folk singer and lyricist, and she writes a lot of music around diversity issues and injustice. And she agreed to be a guest. So she's going to come on and do some songs and have an awesome conversation.
Can you say who it is?
You won't, very few people will know, but again, at least I get to give her a little audience. Her name's Sonia Rootstein. She had a band called Disappear Fear. And yeah, she's just awesome human.
So people can access these. Is that true? They can access them if they're
listening to sure. We've put them all on YouTube. And I've thought about going back and picking and choosing a few to promote, especially with the race conversations. Because if you're in an environment where you just don't know how to approach it, because it is scary. Like I said, I was terrified to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I think these can be leveraged for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. By anyone? Anyone?
It's open to anybody, sure. And what's interesting is most of these people, not all, are in the Keller Williams Realty family. But we don't really talk very much about that. I've had a couple tell their stories of ascension within the company, but we're talking about the big life stuff and their passions, not about real estate, and certainly not about real estate, and not about business very much.
Which is fascinating to me, because that is where many of us are focused, right? We spend our days, most of our time at work, and so we're trying to make it work, right? We're trying to make it work. And when we pick our heads up and look around, there's so much more to life than just work.
And what if we were given this pause so that we would actually reconnect with that thing, so that we could show up better at work? And
what if?
Yeah.
What if?
I've heard you say so many times, we can't waste this. We can't waste this time. The entire world stopped, so we had an opportunity to go introspective.
Yeah.
And why would the world, why would we want to go introspective? Well, because I think we had blinders on. And I do think, whether or not the universe or God intended it, I think so many of us got so disconnected from who and what we are. We needed that pause.
We did need that pause. We are still experiencing effects of that pause, and we probably will for quite a while. I facilitate a group every week, talking about business and how this is impacting them and what they're seeing. And it's fun to see now we don't have to meet every week. We meet every other week, and we're seeing that things are slowly getting back to whatever the term is, because I don't want to call it normal. Whatever it is, the new reality of life. Because if, again, to your point, if we go back to the way it was, we've missed the point.
Yeah.
The way it was not working for heart-led leaders, for people like us, for people who want to connect with deeper, broader, wider awareness.
Yep. Well, so we had the pause, right? And then the other thing that has happened, hopefully we've had the introspection on probably at least a grander scale than we ever have before. And now we're seeing things get exposed. Dirty secrets get exposed, whether, again, it's in families or companies or the country. And to me, it's very clear it's an evolution, and it's a time to choose how we want to evolve and how we want to transform our families, communities, companies, and country.
Please not a revolution. Please not, because then
evolution.
I know. I want to make it clear that you said evolution, because if it's a revolution and people are like, we're going to revolt, what do they say? We're the resistance movement. And what does that do? What does that create when it's resistance? It just
more depends on the other side.
So this is different. I feel it too. I mean,
I think, and I'll say for you and me, because we just had the conversation about anger, we don't operate at our best there. Some people do. And if you do look back in history, you've needed the combination of both working in the same direction. I spent some of the 90s in an activist, pretty militant place. And I'm good at it. I'm good in a fight.
You're like a pit bull.
Yeah. And for me, what I realized is it didn't get me one step forward.
Mm-hmm.
My intention fighting was to convince people of my position. They had to agree with me.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, even though I'm good in a fight, that was not my most effective method. I'm a better bridge builder than I am fighter. However, there's fighters that we actually do need. Otherwise, if you didn't have that, things would not ever be exposed.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think if the fight ends at the fight, then it's always
nobody
just
wins.
A fight. When you said bridge builder, there's a bridge from something and a bridge to something.
Yep.
And so if we're not willing to advance a cause, an idea, a conversation, then we're stuck in the anger.
Well, what did you and I talk about last year? What do you stand for? Yeah. Don't tell me what you're against. What do you stand for?
Yeah. And that's a tough topic to go to if you don't have somebody to work it through with.
Yeah, because it's so much easier to identify what we're against.
Absolutely it is. That's what we're conditioned our whole life. Don't touch the stove. Don't, do this. The don'ts are so prevalent in our lives.
Well, and I also think it's because it's exterior, because again, we don't take that introspection time. So I can look out there and see what I don't like. It's not always as easy to look inside and really feel, well, what am I aligned with?
Do you think I this is a rhetorical question because I know the answer. Do you think it gets easier the more you do it? So that's got to be hopeful for everybody listening here. It gets easier the more you do it, because as you connect with people who are in your circle, who are not necessarily just echo chambering you. Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. That's not what this is about. I don't like the times you call me on my shit. I don't like it, but I need it. And I appreciate it so much when you say things and I go, dang it. Oh,
likewise. Yes. My most valuable relationships are with people who are willing to do that.
Yeah.
I don't get to grow otherwise.
Oh, well, growth doesn't happen that way. That's not how it works. I mean, I keep thinking about, plants growing from seed. It can't be easy to push through the soil when you're planted deep.
Anytime there's growth, again, Diana says, think about childbirth.
Yeah.
Painful. Mm-hmm. Anything that grows. Yeah. Somebody yesterday was using the caterpillar analogy with me.
Yeah.
Maybe our entire world right now is in its little pupa stage.
Yeah. We're
gonna break through and it's going to be painful.
But it's beautiful at the end. The butterfly has a whole different perspective. So yeah. So this is just the beginning, Ashley. We got to have more of these conversations because my Get Real people.
Maybe we should just record our weekly.
We could because that would.
Then you can pick and choose.
I would love that opportunity. Yeah. So this is Circle Up and Get Real. If you're listening to it on the podcast, thank you. If you're listening to it on the YouTube channel, thank you there as well. There's a lot of ways to connect with Ashley. What's the best, Ashley, if somebody wants to?
I would probably say Facebook Messenger.
Okay. So find her on Facebook, just Ashley Lunn. Easy.
LUNN.
Yep. I'll put it in the notes.
All right.
I'll also put a link to your
the YouTube channel, the Get Reals.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple places and circle come together right now.
Come together. I said Get Real. That's yours.
See, that's good. So they're together. They're going to be together. But this is important, you guys. And I just needed you to know, Ashley, who's one of my dearest friends in the world, because I think you can see what we do for each other, what we do with each other, and how we together can actually make the world a better place. That's what it's about, Ashley.
Well, we make each other better, right?
Right. And then you cause me to be a better leader. You've helped me through so many things, you know, and you don't know. So many things I think about later from our
you've done the same for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, now you're reminding me, 2011, if we go back and
I know.
Oh boy, have we gone through some stuff.
Oh my goodness. I am such a better person because of you. And it's a much more fun place to be, even when it's hard.
Yep. So, actually, probably especially when it's hard.
I think you're right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Take care.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will definitely talk soon.
We will. Thank you.
Right. Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.